The number circled in red on your last blood test, the one labeled eGFR, the one your doctor either called fine for your age or used to write the words chronic kidney disease in your chart, was measured against a cutoff that was never adjusted for the fact that you have been losing kidney filters every single year since you turned 40. A team at Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic did something almost no one in medicine had ever done. They took 1,638 living people, every one of them healthy enough to donate a kidney, and they used CT scans and biopsy needles to count the actual filters inside those kidneys, not estimate them, count them. Donors in their 20s had an average of 990,000 working filters per kidney. Donors in their 70s had 520,000. Roughly half the filters gone in people the medical system had certified as healthy. The study was published in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology in January 2017. The threshold that decides whether you have kidney disease has not changed since. So you are in one of two situations right now, and the printout in front of you cannot tell you which. Door A, your eGFR has dropped to 58 or 55 or 52, and the doctor has written stage 3 chronic kidney disease in your chart, and you have been quietly terrified for months, and the truth is your kidneys are aging exactly the way kidneys are supposed to age. You do not have a disease. And the label is a guideline artifact applied to a body the guideline was never designed for. Door B, your eGFR is 65 or 70, and your doctor has been telling you for 3 years that it is fine for your age. And the truth is that your decline rate is actually faster than it should be for someone your age. And the threshold of 60 is missing real damage that is already underway. And the test your doctor keeps running was never built to catch the difference. One of those doors is yours. The other belongs to someone else with the exact same number on their printout. And until the end of this hour, you do not know which. By the end of this hour, you will know which door is yours. You will know the one rate of change that settles it, not the number on the printout, the slope underneath it. You will know the one additional test named for one specific protein your body makes, whether or not you have muscle that breaks the tie when creatinine fails. You will know the name of the calculator nephrologists actually use to predict your 5-year risk, the one you can run on your own phone with the numbers already on your printout. You will know the exact sentence to say at your next appointment that turns either a dismissive fine for your age or a terrifying stage 3 into a real conversation about what is actually happening inside your body. You will know the one line to ask the doctor to write in your chart so that the question gets documented. And you will know what to say when your daughter calls Sunday afternoon and asks, with that worry in her voice, what the kidney specialist actually said. If you have the printout from your last physical somewhere in the house, get up and find it now. If it is not handy, picture the line that says eGFR and the number next to it. That number is going to mean something different by the time we are done. One thing before we go further, nothing in the next hour is permission to skip your nephrology appointment, ignore a low number, or stop a medication. The opposite. What we are doing here is learning enough to walk into your next appointment with a better question than the one you walked in with last time. The doctor is still the doctor. You are about to become a better patient now. You sat in that chair. The cuff went on for the blood pressure check, the nurse drew the tube of blood, and a few days later, the result landed in your patient portal or arrived in an envelope with the lab logo at the top. The line that says eGFR had a number next to it. And depending on which number, one of two things happened at the next visit. Either the doctor glanced at the printout and said something like, "That is about right for someone your age, do not worry about it, we will check it again next year." Or the doctor looked at it a little longer than usual and said the words chronic kidney disease and stage 3, and then explained that it was not dialysis, not anything close, just something to keep an eye on. And you left the office, and in the car on the way home, or that evening at the kitchen counter, or that night staring at the ceiling, the same question came back. The one you did not quite know how to ask while you were sitting in front of the doctor. Am I actually getting sicker? Or am I just getting older? You went home and you typed eGFR 58, or whatever your number was, into the search bar, and the results were either dismissive or apocalyptic. There was no middle. You read about dialysis, you read about supplements that claim to reverse kidney damage, which you correctly do not trust. You read about diet changes, you ordered the book your sister-in-law mentioned, maybe you cut back on the protein, maybe you bought the cranberry capsules. None of it answered the question that was actually keeping you up. Because the question is not, what should I eat? The question is, what is actually happening to me? And the printout in your hand does not tell you, and the doctor did not have time to explain. And your search history is now a graveyard of half answers. By the end of this hour, you will have the words. There are 3 kinds of viewers watching this right now, and the path forward is slightly different for each one. Take a moment to figure out which one is you. The first type is the viewer who has already been labeled. Your most recent eGFR is somewhere between 45 and 59. Your doctor said the words stage 3 or stage 3A or chronic kidney disease, mild, and the word kidney showed up in your after-visit summary for the first time. You have been quietly worried ever since. The conversation that matters most for you is in segment 4. The question you need to ask is whether the decline rate is faster than expected for your age, because if it is not, the label may be measuring your age more than your disease. The second type is the viewer who got the opposite answer. Your eGFR is somewhere between 60 and 75. And your doctor either said it is fine for your age or said nothing at all because it did not cross the threshold that would have made them say something. But you have been watching the number drift downward every year, 72, then 68, then 65. And the trend is the part that is bothering you, not the snapshot. The segment that matters most for you is segment 2. The warning signs, the standard panel misses are aimed almost entirely at you. The third type is the viewer who has not had the test in a while, or has it but does not understand the printout, and is here because someone, a spouse, a sister, an adult child, naive, has been telling you that you need to find out. You are not labeled. You are not reassured. You are uncertain. The segment that matters most for you is segment 1, where you will learn what eGFR is actually measuring and what it is missing, because that is the foundation everything else sits on top of. No matter which of the 3 you are, the mechanism underneath is the same. And it starts with something your kidneys do that no standard blood test was ever designed to measure. A team led by Dr. Alexander Denick and Dr. Andrew Rule at Mayo Clinic with Dr. Emilio Poggio at Cleveland Clinic did something the field of kidney medicine had been needing for 50 years. They sat down with the records of 1,638 living people who had volunteered to donate one of their kidneys, and they used 2 tools no one had combined at this scale before. A CT scan, which measured the exact volume of the working part of each kidney, and a biopsy needle, which took a small sample of that working part and let a pathologist count the filters inside the sample, multiply the volume by the density of filters per cubic centimeter, and for the first time in medical history, a research team had a number for how many actual filters were inside a living person's kidney. The filter is called a nephron. Each nephron has at its tip a tiny tuft of capillaries called the glomerulus, and that is where your blood actually gets cleaned. Everything else in your kidneys, the tubules, the ducts, the blood supply, is in service of the work that happens at the glomerulus. The eGFR number on your printout is named after the glomerulus. The G in eGFR stands for glomerular. The estimated glomerular filtration rate is, in plain words, an estimate of how much fluid all of your glomeruli together are filtering per minute. nothing else. Here is the image to hold in your head for the rest of the hour, and I am not going to re-explain it after this. Your kidneys are a house. Each kidney has, at birth, about 1 million separate fuses. Every fuse handles a small piece of the household electrical load. The fuses are the nephrons. The total current that flows through all of them per minute is the GFR. When you are 20, almost every fuse is intact, the current flows freely, and the GFR is high. The threshold of 60 milliliters per minute that defines kidney disease was set as if every house in America still had its original fuse box. The Mayo and Cleveland team went into 1,638 houses and counted the fuses directly. What they found rewrote the textbook. Donors in their 20s had an average of 990,000 intact fuses per kidney. Donors in their 70s had 520,000. The drop was not subtle. It was not a few percent. It was nearly half. And these were not sick people. These were the healthiest adults in the entire study population, healthy enough to give a kidney to a stranger and walk out of the hospital. Half their fuses were gone, and they had no idea, and neither had their doctors, because no test on any standard physical can count fuses. The eGFR test estimates current, not fuses, and the remaining fuses, the ones still there, were each working harder to make up for the missing ones. The current looked closer to normal than it should have because the remaining fuses were carrying more load than they were designed for. Now keep the fuse box picture in mind and look back at your printout. The number labeled eGFR is an estimate of total current. It is calculated from a single blood test, your creatinine level, plugged into an equation along with your age and your sex. The equation does its best, but it cannot see fuses. It cannot tell you whether your current is lower because you have lost a normal number of fuses for your age, or because you have lost more than normal and the rest are straining. It can only tell you the current is lower than the cutoff that was set decades ago. Using studies of mostly younger adults, this is where the question of normal aging versus disease starts to matter. Because if the average healthy 70-year-old has lost roughly half their fuses, then the eGFR number on a healthy 70-year-old's printout is going to be lower than the number on a healthy 30-year-old's printout. Not because the 70-year-old is sick, because the 70-year-old is 70. The Mayo data put a number on it. From about age 40 onward, the average adult loses somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 nephrons per kidney per year. And this happens whether you eat well or eat poorly, whether you exercise or do not, whether you have a family history of kidney disease or do not. It happens. It is biology. So if you are 65 and your eGFR has been drifting from 75 down to 65, down to 58, over the past decade, there are two things going on at once, and the printout cannot separate them. One is the predictable biological loss of nephrons that happens to every human body. The other, which may or may not be present, is actual disease, damage from blood pressure, from diabetes, from a medication, from something else, that is killing nephrons faster than time alone would. The most important question in kidney medicine for an adult over 60 is no longer, is your eGFR below 60? The most important question is your rate of decline faster than expected for your age? That is the question that separates door A from door B, and it is the question that almost no annual physical answers directly, because the printout shows you a snapshot, not a slope. One more thing before we move on, and this is the part that earns the rest of the hour. Do not stop any medication based on what I just told you. Do not skip your nephrology appointment if one is on the calendar. Do not decide that because the threshold was set wrong for your age, the number on your printout does not matter. It matters. It matters more than ever. It just means something different than you thought. And you are now going to learn how to ask the right next question about it. The question sitting in your head right now is probably this one. If the threshold misses the difference between aging and disease, how do I tell, for me specifically, which one is happening? There are 5 warning signs the standard annual lab panel does not catch on its own. And the first one is something you can look at tonight without leaving the house. The first warning sign is the one almost no one looks at, and it is sitting on the printouts you already have somewhere in a drawer. The rate, not the most recent eGFR. The change in eGFR over time. Pull out the lab results from the last 3 physicals. The number you're looking for is in the same place on each printout, labeled eGFR, sometimes with a small calc or estimated next to it. Write all 3 down on a single piece of paper, oldest on the left, most recent on the right, then subtract. If the drop from year to year is around 1 milliliter per minute per year, and for example, 68 3 years ago, 67 2 years ago, 66 last year, that is consistent with normal kidney aging in an adult over 60. The Mayo data and decades of longitudinal kidney research line up on roughly that pace. If the drop is closer to 2 milliliters per minute per year, the conversation gets more serious. If the drop is 3 or more milliliters per minute per year, for example, 72, then 66, then 60. That is what nephrologists call rapid progression. And it does not matter whether your number is still above 60 or already below, because the slope is the warning, not the snapshot. The standard annual physical does not flag the slope. The lab printout does not calculate it. The doctor's eye, in a 15-minute visit reviewing 7 other organ systems, often does not catch it. You have to look at 3 printouts side by side, and almost no one does. The second warning sign is the test you have probably never been offered, and it is the single most important blood test in kidney medicine for adults over 60. It is called cystatin C, spelled cystatin with a capital C, and it is a small protein that your body produces at a remarkably steady rate, regardless of your muscle mass, your age, your sex, or how much red meat you ate the night before the blood draw. Cystatin C is filtered out of your blood by your kidneys at almost exactly the same rate as the fluid that defines GFR in the first place, which means cystatin C is a far cleaner window into kidney function than creatinine alone, especially in an older adult who has lost muscle. The 2024 KDIGO Clinical Practice Guideline, that is the worldwide standard of care document for kidney disease, published in Kidney International in April of 2024, explicitly recommends combining creatinine with cystatin C for any clinical situation where the creatinine-based estimate may be inaccurate. For adults over 60, especially anyone who has lost weight, lost muscle, or has been labeled stage 3 based on creatinine alone, that recommendation applies to you. It is sitting in the international guideline. It is rated level 1, grade B, a strong recommendation backed by moderate quality evidence. And it is almost never run at an annual physical because creatinine is cheaper, faster, and bundled into the basic metabolic panel by default. Cystatin C has to be ordered separately, and it has to be asked for. The third warning sign is the one that lives in your morning bathroom, and almost no one mentions: the urine albumin to creatinine ratio, abbreviated ACR. This is a urine test, not a blood test, and it measures how much of a specific protein called albumin is leaking out into your urine. Healthy kidneys keep albumin in the bloodstream. Damaged kidneys let it slip through the filters. The earliest sign that something is actually wrong with the filters, as opposed to simply fewer of them being present, is usually albumin in the urine. Your eGFR can still be sitting comfortably above 60 while the ACR is already abnormal, which means the standard threshold has not flagged you yet, but the damage has started. The KDIGO 2024 guideline is explicit. Both eGFR and ACR are required to diagnose or rule out chronic kidney disease, not one. Both. If your last physical only ran the eGFR and not the ACR, the panel was incomplete, and the question of whether you have actual kidney damage was not actually answered. The fourth warning sign is changes in urination that you may have dismissed as just getting older. Waking up 2 or 3 times at night to urinate when you used to sleep through, or noticing your urine has become foamy in the toilet bowl in a way it never used to, or noticing that the color is darker even when you are drinking the same amount of water. These are not by themselves diagnoses of anything. Plenty of people in their 60s and 70s wake at night for reasons that have nothing to do with kidneys. But in the context of a dropping eGFR, these symptoms are the body adding information that the lab printout does not contain. The reason the standard annual lab panel misses them is simple. Your doctor does not ask about them, and you very reasonably do not mention them because they'll feel like aging. They might be aging, they might also be the kidneys telling you what the eGFR cannot. The fifth warning sign is the one that surprises people. Blood pressure that is creeping up over the same years, your eGFR is creeping down. The kidneys and the blood pressure system are wired together. When the filters begin to struggle, the kidneys send signals that raise blood pressure to try to push more blood through the remaining filters. The remaining fuses, working harder to carry the load, lean on the pressure system to help them. If your blood pressure has been slowly drifting upward over the same 3 to 5 years, your eGFR has been drifting downward. The two trends are not independent of each other. They are talking to each other, and the conversation is happening inside your body, whether or not anyone in the exam room is paying attention to it. So here is what I am going to ask you to do, and I want you to actually do it, not just listen to it. Pause this video right now. Go find the lab results from your last 3 physicals. They are in a folder, in a drawer, on your patient portal, or in an email from the lab. Pull out 3 printouts. Write the year on top of each one. Then on a single sheet of paper, write 3 things. Your eGFR for each of the 3 years, your urine albumin to creatinine ratio, if it appears on any of them, and a question mark if it does not. Your blood pressure readings, average over the year if you have multiple. That single piece of paper is what you are going to bring to your next appointment. It is the first tool. The slope of the eGFR, the presence or absence of the ACR, and the direction of the blood pressure. 3 lines on a page. Take 5 minutes, put the video on pause, and do it now. You are probably asking the same question I asked the first time I read this research. Why has my own doctor never mentioned any of this to me? Why are 7 years of published evidence sitting in journals while my appointments still get 15 minutes and a single creatinine number? The answer is not what you expect, and it is not what most YouTube videos will tell you. The answer is structural. The doctor is not the problem. And once you understand what is actually going on, you will know exactly what to do at your next visit. Reading aloud, beat note, chunk 1 is paced for Hey Jen, Dr. Elizabeth at roughly 150 words per minute. 3 permitted pauses are placed when I say 1 door farcing, 1 after the 2 doors, beat 3 close, 1 after you will have the words, bridge pivot, and 1 inside segment 1 after the rate of change reveal. The first physical action request lands at the end of segment 2 as designed. The fuse box analogy is established once in segment 1 and referenced only as short callback afterward. The doctor is not yet acquitted. That is held for segment 3 as the spine architecture requires. The answer starts with a number you have never been told, and the number is 15. 15 minutes, that is the average length of a primary care appointment in the United States. The doctor walks in, opens your chart, reviews 7 or 8 organ systems, listens to your heart and lungs, asks about new symptoms, refills your prescriptions, addresses whatever you came in for that day, orders the lab work for next year, signs the after-visit summary, and walks out. 15 minutes, sometimes 12, occasionally 20 if you are lucky, and the schedule is light. That is the window inside which every single decision about your kidneys has to fit, along with every decision about your heart, your blood sugar, your bones, your medication interactions, and the new pain in your shoulder. Now layer on the second number. The average primary care doctor in the United States carries somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 patients on their panel. Across a year, that doctor sees about 4,000 patient visits. The doctor cannot read the journals in real time. The doctor cannot track every guideline update in every specialty. The doctor cannot pause your 15-minute visit to walk you through a nephrology debate that has been running in academic journals since 2019. The doctor is a human being doing a job that was designed 2 generations ago for a slower pace of information than the pace we have now. So when your eGFR comes back at 58, the doctor does what every well-trained doctor is supposed to do. They check the guideline. The guideline says below 60 for 3 months equals chronic kidney disease, stage 3. The doctor writes it in the chart, mentions it to you, schedules the follow-up, and moves on to the next item. That is not negligence. That is medicine working exactly the way medicine is supposed to work when the guideline matches reality. The problem is not that your doctor followed the guideline. The problem is that the guideline on this specific question is behind the evidence. Here's the timeline, and I want you to hold it in your head, because once you see the lag, you cannot unsee it. In January 2017, Dennis and Rule and their team published the nephron counting study in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology. The data is undeniable. Healthy people lose nephrons with age. By 2019, an international group of 24 nephrologists, led by Dr. Pierre Delaunay in Belgium, publishes a paper in the same journal called CKD, a call for an age-adapted definition. Their proposal is specific. Use a threshold of 75 for adults under 40. Keep the threshold at 60 for adults 40 to 64, and lower the threshold to 45 for adults 65 and older. The argument is supported with epidemiological data, biopsy studies, and the Mayo nephron count. The proposal is not fringe. It is published in the most prestigious kidney journal in the world. In 2020, Dr. Andrew Levy, Dr. Leslie Inker, and Dr. Joseph Koresh, 3 of the most respected nephrologists in the United States, the people who actually built the eGFR equation everyone uses, publish the formal counterargument in Kidney International. Their position is that the evaluation and management of kidney disease should be age-adapted, but the definition should not, because lowering the threshold for older adults risks missing real damage in people whose decline rate is faster than aging alone. In 2022, Dr. Jennifer Lees and Dr. Michael Schlipak published data in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society showing that the age-adapted threshold may, in fact, underestimate risk in older adults, finding that people over 65 with eGFR between 45 and 59 still had measurable increased risk of cardiovascular events and hospitalization, even if their absolute risk of kidney failure was lower. The debate, which began as a clean 2-sided argument, gets more complicated. In April of 2024, the Kidney Disease Improving Global Outcomes Organization, KDIGO, the body that writes the worldwide guidelines, publishes its first updated CKD guideline in 11 years. 11 years. The previous guideline came out in 2013. The world has been waiting for this update, and when it arrives, the threshold is still 60 milliliters per minute, the same number. After 7 years of published debate, the threshold did not change. What did change is that the new guideline, for the first time, explicitly recommends combining creatinine with cystatin C whenever the creatinine-based estimate may be inaccurate. That is the door that opened for you. The threshold stayed the same, but the door to a more accurate measurement quietly opened. Almost no one walked through it because almost no one ordered the new test, because the basic metabolic panel still bundles creatinine and cystatin C, still has to be requested separately. And in November of 2025, Delaunay and 3 colleagues published a synthesis paper in the Clinical Kidney Journal trying to chart a middle path. The debate is still active right now. While you are watching this video, nephrologists around the world are still arguing about what the number on your printout actually means. So why has your doctor never mentioned any of this to you? Because none of it is wrong on your doctor's part. Your doctor is following the 2024 guideline. The 2024 guideline keeps the threshold at 60. The cystatin C recommendation is technically there, but functionally invisible inside a 15-minute appointment that was already overbooked. The age adapted argument is in academic journals, not in the after-visit summary template. This is not negligence. This is the lag built into how medicine moves. Research is published. Debate happens, guidelines update slowly, doctors follow guidelines. Patients wait, often without knowing they are waiting. By the time the guideline catches up to the research, the patient who walked in last year with the question has already either been labeled or dismissed or quietly worried. And they did not get the conversation that the research would have supported. The only way the pattern gets broken for you specifically before the guidelines fully catch up is if someone in the exam room brings the new information in. The doctor is not going to bring it. The doctor cannot. The 15-minute appointment cannot carry it. The someone is you. And you do not need a medical degree to bring it in. You need three things: the slope of your eGFR over time, the request for a cystatin C-based confirmation, and one sentence the doctor needs to hear in the right order. That sentence and the conversation that follows it is what the next segment is about. The conversation has three parts, and you are going to walk in with all three written down, not in your head, on paper. The paper is your most important tool inside that 15-minute room. Part 1 is the slope sheet. You already made it at the end of the last segment. 3 eGFRs across 3 years, your ACR if you have it, and your blood pressure trend. That sheet goes on the desk between you and the doctor at the start of the visit, not in your bag. On the desk, the visual presence of the paper changes the conversation because the doctor's eye lands on it and the appointment becomes about the data, not about the symptoms of the day list that usually fills the 15 minutes. Part 2 is the opening sentence. The exact words are these: I have been looking at my eGFR trend over the last 3 years, and what I want to know today is whether my rate of decline is faster than expected for my age. That is the sentence. It is one sentence. It is calm. It does not accuse anyone of anything. It does not ask for a referral or a test or a label. It asks one specific question that almost no other patient in that doctor's day will have asked. And it triggers a different kind of conversation because the doctor, hearing that sentence, now has to think about your rate, not just your snapshot. The doctor has to engage with the slope. And that is the conversation you have been wanting to have that the standard appointment has not made room for. Here's what happens next. And there are 3 possible responses you should be ready for. The first response is the best one. The doctor leans in, looks at your slope sheet, agrees that the rate of change is the right question, and pulls up your historical results on the screen to confirm. If that happens, you are in good hands. You then move to part 3. The second response is more common. The doctor nods, says they have not specifically looked at the rate, agrees it is a reasonable question, and offers to review the historical results and get back to you. If that happens, you are still in good hands, and you also move to part 3. The third response is the one to be ready for. The doctor says something like, your number is fine for your age, you do not need to worry about this. Or if you are on the labeled side, your number is what we would expect at stage 3. We will keep watching it. Both of those responses are answering a different question than the one you asked. You asked about the rate, the doctor answered about the number. That is the moment to repeat yourself calmly one time. I understand the number itself. What I am asking is whether the change from year to year is consistent with normal aging or faster than that. Repeat once, not twice. If the doctor still does not engage with the slope question, you have learned something important about this appointment, and you move to part 3 anyway. Part 3 is the request for the cystatin C-based eGFR. The exact words are these: given the 2024 KDIGO guideline recommendation, can we run a cystatin C-based eGFR to confirm my kidney function more accurately? You do not need to explain what KDIGO is. The doctor knows. Mentioning the guideline by name signals that you have done the reading, and it gives the doctor a clean clinical justification to order the test because cystatin C is now backed by a level 1 recommendation in the worldwide standard of care document. The test runs from about $30 to $70 depending on the lab, and it is covered by Medicare Part B when ordered with a clinical justification, which the guideline provides. Some insurance plans cover it routinely. Some require the doctor to note the indication in the chart. Either way, the cost is small and the answer it provides is large. Here's what the cystatin C-based eGFR actually does. It runs the kidney function estimate using a protein your body produces independently of muscle, so the result is not distorted by the muscle loss that comes with age. If your creatinine-based eGFR was 58 and your cystatin C-based eGFR comes back at 68, you have just learned something important. Your creatinine number was being dragged down by your muscle loss. Your actual kidney function is closer to 68, and the stage 3 label may not have been the right call. If your creatinine-based eGFR was 58 and your cystatin C-based eGFR comes back at 56 or lower, you have also learned something important. The lower number is closer to reality, the decline is real, and the next step is a nephrology referral and a closer look at why. Either way, you now know which door you were standing in front of. That is the conversation you came for. There is one more thing to ask for, and it is the line you came here to learn. Before you leave the room, say this. Would you be comfortable noting in my chart that I asked today whether my rate of eGFR decline is faster than expected for my age, and whether a cystatin C-based eGFR would help clarify my actual kidney risk? Say those words, exactly those words. What that sentence does is profound. It documents the conversation. It puts in writing that the slope question was asked and that the cystatin C question was raised. If the doctor agrees to run the cystatin C, the chart note becomes the record of a good appointment. If the doctor declines to run it, the chart note becomes a record that you raised the appropriate clinical question and a decision was made about it. Either way, the question now exists in your medical record. And if 6 months from now you want a second opinion, or if the symptoms get worse, or if you transfer to a different practice, the chart goes with you and the question is documented in it. And the next doctor who sees you will know that this conversation already started. There is one calculator I want you to know about, and it lives on a website called qxmd.com. That is Q as in Queen, xmd.com. And the calculator is called the Kidney Failure Risk Equation, developed by Dr. Navdeep Tangri and his colleagues, originally published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2011, and validated in 2016 in a meta-analysis covering more than 700,000 patients across 30-plus countries. The KFRE asks you for 4 pieces of information that are already on your lab printout: your age, your sex, your most recent eGFR, and your urine albumin to creatinine ratio. And it returns your individual 2-year and 5-year risk of progressing to kidney failure. It is the calculator nephrologists use. It is recommended in the KDIGO 2024 guideline for adults with eGFR below 60. And the public version is free. If your eGFR is below 60 and you have an ACR result, you can run it yourself in about 90 seconds tonight. The number it returns is the answer to the question you have actually been carrying. Not, do I have a label, but what does the label actually mean for my 5-year future? That is the individualized number the standard appointment cannot give you. 3 things to not do at the appointment. Do not argue with the doctor. The doctor is not your opponent. The doctor is the person you are trying to recruit into a better conversation. Do not get angry if the first response is dismissive. Repeat once, calmly, and move on. Do not threaten to find a different doctor. Doctors talk. Practices share charts. Your reputation as a patient travels with you. The patient who walks in with a slope sheet and a quiet question gets a different conversation than the patient who walks in with a complaint. You are going to be the first patient. Do not stop any kidney medication based on what you learn at the appointment. If you are on a medication that protects your kidneys, an ACE inhibitor, an ARB, an SGLT2 inhibitor, anything your doctor has prescribed specifically for the kidneys, that medication keeps doing its job whether your label is right or wrong. The job of the medication is to slow the progression. The job of the cystatin C is to clarify the picture. They do different things, and the picture clarifying does not change what the medication is doing. You now have the slope sheet. You have the opening sentence. You have the cystatin C request with the guideline citation. You have the chart documentation line. You have the KFRE calculator. But there is one more thing, and it is the thing that makes all of this work, not just at your next appointment, but at every appointment for the rest of your life. I want you to sit back for a moment, or stand up and stretch if you have been sitting, and picture 2 scenes. Take 20 seconds with each one. They are both you, both real, both possible. The difference between them is what you do with the next hour after this video ends. In the first scene, it is 6 months from now. You are sitting in the same chair, in the same office, with the same doctor, and the receptionist has called you back at almost the same time you usually get called back. You have the slope sheet in your hand. You have the lab results from the cystatin-C test from 2 months ago in your folder because you asked for it at the last visit and the result came back. You also have on your phone your KFRE result from last week, your individualized 5-year risk number, which you ran yourself in 90 seconds while drinking your morning coffee. The doctor sits down, opens your chart, and the first thing they see before they see anything else is the chart note from your last visit that says you asked about the rate of decline and the cystatin-C confirmation. The doctor remembers the conversation. The doctor takes your slope sheet, looks at the cystatin-C result, and the conversation that follows is not 15 minutes of generic check-the-box review. It is 10 minutes about your specific kidneys, your specific risk, and what specifically to watch over the next year. The appointment ends and you walk out, and for the first time in a long time, you do not have a question still rattling around in your head that you forgot to ask. The question got asked. The question got answered. The chart note documents that it happened. In the second scene, it is also 6 months from now. You did not bring the slope sheet to the last visit. You did not say the sentence. You did not ask for the cystatin-C. You did not document anything in the chart. The doctor glances at your most recent eGFR, says it is about what we would expect, schedules the follow-up for next year, and walks out of the room in 12 minutes. You drive home. That night you stare at the ceiling. You think about your daughter's worry. You think about your brother who had a stent put in last year. You wonder if you should have said something. You did not. The difference between those two scenes is not knowledge. You have the knowledge now. You have had it since about the 40-minute mark of this video. The difference is whether you write 3 numbers on a piece of paper and put it in the folder where you keep your appointment reminders. 3 numbers, 1 piece of paper. That is the entire difference between scene 1 and scene 2. 6 months from now, same chair, same doctor. But there is a third scene, and this is the one I want to leave you with. It is Sunday afternoon, a few months from now. The phone rings. It is your daughter or your son or your sister or the friend who sat with you in the waiting room last year. They are calling because they just got their own lab results back, and the eGFR number is lower than they were expecting. And the doctor said something that did not quite answer their question, and they are scared and they do not know what to ask. And you, on the other end of the line, calmly, the way you have learned to be calm about these things now, walk them through the same 3 things you brought to your own appointment. The slope, the cystatin-C request with the guideline citation, the chart documentation sentence. You do not give them medical advice. You give them 3 tools that work in any exam room with any doctor for any version of this question. And the person on the other end of the line who started the call scared ends the call with something better than reassurance. They end it with a plan. That is the identity. The person who reads the research before the doctor has time to. The person who walks into the exam room with a slope, not a symptom. The person who asks 1 calm, specific question and documents the answer. The person who at the family dinner gets asked by the others what they have been reading lately because the others have noticed that you seem to know what you are talking about now in a way you did not a year ago. That is the identity. It is not built from a single appointment. It is built from 1 piece of paper, 1 sentence, 1 chart note, repeated across the next 10 years of your life. And here's the thing the eGFR conversation is not telling you yet. The skill you just learned is not about kidneys. The skill is about how thresholds get set in medicine, who the studies are run on, and what to ask when a number on a printout decides something about your body. The eGFR is one example. There are others. And once you see the pattern, the medicine cabinet looks different. What is a normal eGFR for someone over 70? There is no single normal. The Mayo data and the 2019 Delaney review both put the average eGFR for healthy 70-year-olds in roughly the upper 50s to mid-60s range, which sits below the standard CKD threshold of 60. The reason there is no single normal is that the threshold was not built for your age group, and the actual range varies by individual decline rate. The action is to compare your most recent eGFR to your eGFR from 3 years ago and look at the slope, not the snapshot. Is stage 3 kidney disease really a disease in older adults? This is the active debate. The Delaney group and supporters argue that an eGFR of 50 to 59 in an adult over 65 with no other markers of damage may not warrant the disease label. The Lees and Schlepak data and the Levy counter position argue that even at that level, cardiovascular and hospitalization risks remain elevated and the label still has clinical value. The honest answer is that the field has not settled it, and the way it gets settled for you specifically is by adding a cystatin C result, a urine ACR, and a KFRE risk number to the eGFR. With those 4 pieces of information, the question becomes answerable for you. Can creatinine give a false reading of kidney function? Yes, in 2 specific directions. If you have lost muscle mass with age, which most adults over 60 have, creatinine reads artificially low, which makes the eGFR equation calculate a higher kidney function than is actually true. If you ate a large amount of cooked meat the night before the blood draw, or are very muscular, creatinine reads artificially high, which makes the eGFR equation calculate a lower kidney function than is true. The action is to ask for a cystatin C-based eGFR, which is not affected by muscle mass. Should I stop my blood pressure medication if it is hurting my kidneys? Do not stop any medication based on this video. ACE inhibitors and ARBs, the 2 most common blood pressure medications that affect the kidneys, are usually protective for the kidneys over time, even though they can produce a small initial drop in eGFR when first started. That drop is expected and is not damage. The conversation about whether any specific medication is right for your specific kidneys is a conversation with your doctor, with your slope sheet on the desk between you, not a decision you make alone after a video. Why is this YouTube doctor telling me things my real doctor has not? A fair question, and you should ask it of anything you read or watch online. The honest answer is that nothing in this video is hidden, secret, or controversial. Every study cited is published in a major peer-reviewed journal: the New England Journal of Medicine, the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology, JAMA, Kidney International, Clinical Kidney Journal. Every guideline referenced is the current KDIGO 2024 worldwide standard. Your doctor knows all of it. The reason it has not come up in your 15-minute appointment is that 15 minutes is not enough to walk through it, and the standard appointment template does not include the slope conversation. The video is here to give you the time the appointment cannot. The doctor is still the doctor. Bring what you learned here to your next visit. The eGFR conversation is one example of something bigger that is true across most of medicine. And once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. Most of the thresholds and cutoffs that decide what is normal on a lab printout were established using studies of mostly younger adults. And the same cutoff gets applied to a 75-year-old as gets applied to a 35-year-old, even though the bodies are different in ways that matter to the test. Blood pressure targets, cholesterol cutoffs, hemoglobin A1C goals, bone density T-scores, PSA cutoffs. Each one has its own version of this same conversation happening in the academic journals right now, with its own group of researchers calling for age-adapted definitions, and its own counter group arguing that the labels still have value, and its own guideline body that updated last year and kept most of the old numbers. The medicine cabinet on the counter, the one with 5 or 6 or 7 bottles in it, each one corresponds to a number on a lab printout, and each number was decided by a threshold that was set somewhere. Some of those thresholds are well supported for your age, some are not. Some of the medications in that cabinet are doing exactly what they should. Some are addressing a number that may be less of a threat to you than to a younger version of you. This video does not tell you which is which. No video can. The skill the video gave you tells you how to ask. The 3 tools you learned for eGFR work for any number on your lab printout: the slope, the confirmatory test, the chart documentation. Ask your doctor whether the threshold for any specific value on your panel was age-adjusted. Ask for the rate of change, not just the most recent snapshot. Ask whether there is a more accurate confirmatory test you should consider, given your age and your specific situation. And ask the chart note question every time. for every number, for the rest of your life. The skill is the takeaway. The eGFR was the proof. You did not get this far in your life by ignoring numbers. You got here by paying attention. You raised the family, you ran the household, you tracked the budget, you watched the readings on the thermostat and the gas gauge and the bank statement and the blood pressure cuff. You paid attention. And now you have one more number worth paying attention to in the way you have paid attention to all the others. Not with fear, with clarity. Tonight, before you go to sleep, find the lab results from the last 3 physicals. Write the 3 eGFR numbers on a single piece of paper. Put it in the folder where you keep the appointment reminders. That is all. 5 minutes. If you know someone else on this same road, an undue, a sibling, a friend at the church or the gym, a neighbor who mentioned their numbers at the holiday gathering, send them this video. Not because they are sick, because they have a printout sitting in a drawer too, and nobody has told them what the threshold was actually built for. If your next question is about the Cystatin C test specifically, what it measures, how it gets ordered, what the result looks like when it comes back, I made a video about that, and it is linked below this one. You have the words now.